Let me tell you how my unsightly wall and the arrogance of one HOA president almost wiped my entire neighborhood off the map. It started with a note slapped on my door, as blunt as a slap in the face. Your wall violates our aesthetic standards. Remove it immediately. Not a request, not a warning. A demand from people who'd never spent a day in mud or a sleepless night worrying about ground stability. That wall wasn't just concrete and stone, it was 20 tons of protection, the only thing standing between 6 houses and a slide into oblivion. 37 years as an engineer, and suddenly my experience counted for nothing against someone's idea of natural beauty. You'd think nobody in their right mind would mess with a structure holding back a mountain, but you don't know my HOA. Or Vivian Thorne, our newly elected president with an eye for throw pillows and a pathological hatred of anything industrial. She wanted everything cohesive, like she was painting a magazine spread. Never mind the danger, never mind county permits, never mind physics. Her vision trumped reality. See, I didn't buy my place in Marlow Heights for the pretty views. I bought it for the challenge, a 38-foot drop into a canyon out back, a slope so unstable the insurance agent blinked twice before shaking my hand. Most folks called it a liability. I called it a retirement project. I poured my soul into that wall 10 feet high, 38 feet long, built to county code with every permit signed, every inspection passed. My own little textbook of slope stabilization, county engineers' words, not mine. 5 years, no problems. Not even a shiver in the rainy season. Then Vivian arrived like a bad weatherfront wine glass in hand, smile stretched too thin to be real. First words out of her mouth at the Memorial Day barbecue, mind you weren't hello, but have you considered something more natural, as if gravity gives a damn about her design language? When I tried to explain, she actually laughed. Nature knows how to balance itself, you know what I mean? Like Mother Nature's ever paid an HOA fine. Right then I should have known I was doomed. Especially with that young neighbor backing her up fresh out of landscape architecture school, spouting off about how natural is better. I wanted to hand her a shovel and see how nature felt after a real storm. 2 weeks later, the first violation notice showed up on my windshield. Unauthorized structure. Immediate compliance required. I pulled out every scrap of paperwork I had, permits, soil reports, inspection certificates, marched it all down to the HOA office, thinking surely reason would win. But the notices kept coming. Late fees, removal orders delivered in person by poor Eleanor Vance, our trembling treasurer. She could barely look me in the eye. I think you're right about the danger, she whispered once, but she scares me. That was my first inkling. This wasn't about a wall anymore. It was about power. The next HOA meeting was a circus. Vivian had a whole slideshow pictures of my wall labeled like mugshots, clicking through slides like it was her own little TED Talk. This structure represents everything we're trying to move away from, she declared. The room buzzed. Function over beauty is not our vision. I stood up. That wall keeps your homes from sliding into the canyon. I have soil reports, county permits. Do you want to vote against gravity? You could hear the room squirm, but the peer pressure was relentless. Even the elderly neighbor, retired science teacher, should have known better. Raised his hand when Vivian called for a vote. Unanimous? Except for me. Democracy apparently can outvote Newton's laws. Still, I tried to fight it. Compiled a 15-page report, weather data engineering citations, photos of failed neighborhoods where walls had been removed. Sent it certified mail copies to the county and every board member. For a split second, I thought they'd come to their senses. But Saturday morning, a white pickup rolled up with 2 contractors ready to take it all down. I told them firm but polite that if they touched a stone, I'd call the police. They left for the moment. Vivian doubled down at the next meeting, talking legal authority and beautification standards. You can vote against my wall all you want, I said, but you can't vote against physics. The young neighbor rolled her eyes. Stop terrorizing everyone. The elderly man piped up, "Maybe we should listen to the engineer," but again, peer pressure crushed common sense. That night I called my son in Colorado. "Dad, some forces can't be negotiated with," he reminded me. "You told me that when I was 6. It stung." 2 weeks later, while I was at the dentist, they snuck in. Came home to find my wall demolished, my yard looking like a war zone, all those years of experience hauled away in a dump truck. Filed a police report, called my insurance, documented every crack and trampled plant. But standing on that disturbed ground, I felt it loose, ready to move. I could almost hear the mountain breathing. So I did what any stubborn engineer would do. Bought a dozen survey flags, marked and measured every inch of slope. Within days, every flag had shifted. The ground was moving an inch here, 4 inches there, water-pooling trees, leaning cracks forming in the dirt. I called Vivian. She hung up on me. The county dragged its feet processing my emergency report. So I took my photos door to door, showing my neighbors what happens when engineers get ignored. Patrick Caldwell, a civil rights attorney new to the neighborhood, was the first to believe me. "You're not the type to lie about this," he said. The others half grateful, half hostile, especially the young neighbor who accused me of fear-mongering and slammed the door in my face. But some couldn't deny the truth. The elderly neighbor rolled a marble across his floor. It drifted, then raced for the back corner. "The whole house is tilting," he whispered. Eleanor appeared at sunset, nervous, wringing her hands. "Arthur, there are communications I shouldn't say, but people could die." She wouldn't say more, but the guilt in her eyes said plenty. The cracks widened. I filed urgent reports, called local news, but they wanted expert confirmation. Physics, though, doesn't wait for paperwork. That night I got an anonymous text, Eleanor finally ready to talk. "Tomorrow night after book club. Park entrance. I'll find you." I barely slept. Before I could meet her, heavy machinery roared outside at dawn, bulldozers scraping what was left of the slope. I rushed out in my robe, demanding permits, asking about erosion control. "Just following orders," the crew chief shrugged. Across the street, Vivian sat in her car, watching like a general. I confronted her. For once, she looked shaken. "Too far to turn back now," she muttered, her voice cracking. Panic had replaced arrogance. That afternoon, the county inspector showed up. Young guy Rodriguez took one look, went pale. "This is a code red situation. Catastrophic slope failure possible." By sundown, the county taped off every backyard. News crews swarmed. Neighbors split, half prepping to evacuate, half clinging to Vivian's party line that I was spreading panic. Then the mountain moved. First, the elderly neighbor's garden shed vanished as the ground slumped. I sounded the alarm on emergency radio, told everyone to get out. The young neighbor, live streaming the chaos, finally admitted. The engineer was right. Next morning, 10 minutes after 10, a sound like the end of the world, a 30-second landslide that swallowed the park and crippled 3 houses. I didn't hesitate. Ran through the mud to rescue the elderly couple from their red house. Pulled them out just as the ground gave way again. But the worst was Vivian. Someone found her barefoot in the wreckage, pajamas soaked, muttering, "I said it would be fine." And then the scream. A howl that echoed for blocks, sanity snapping under the weight of her own choices. By morning, she was gone. No forwarding address, just the memory of that scream. Within days, anonymous flyers blamed me, claimed my unauthorized wall had caused millions in damage, diverting water, destabilizing the slope. Social media lit up with conspiracy theories. Neighbors crossed the street to avoid me. Patrick hired a geotechnical expert, Dr. Martinez, 40 years in soil mechanics. Her report was crystal retaining wall removal caused the collapse, but Vivian's lawyer spun it, blamed non-native structures. Doubt was their weapon. All hope hinged on Eleanor, who'd vanished. I finally caught her at the grocery store, older, scared. "I have the emails," she whispered, "but the files won't open." My computer crashed. 3 days, and a data recovery specialist finally pulled up the smoking gun Vivian's email dated weeks before the wall came down. Even if he's right about the safety issues, that wall still has to go. Setting a precedent is more important than technical considerations. She knew. She ignored every warning. We filed an emergency motion, called a community meeting, projected the email on a big screen. The room fell silent. The young neighbor slipped out red-faced. The elderly neighbor apologized, as did others. The next morning they asked me to run the HOA. I accepted. My first act: abolish aesthetic restrictions, build safety-first guidelines, form a technical committee. Neighbors started working together, asking for advice. I rebuilt the wall, this time with benches along the top and a bronze plaque. In memory of a lesson, listen to the builders. 3 months later, I was at the county offices using a marble and cardboard ramp to explain slope failure to officials. Someone joked, "Why weren't you on the board to begin with?" Too technical. I laughed. The county's official report pinned the blame squarely on the unauthorized removal. The HOA was dissolved. Damaged homeowners got full compensation. Vivian's assets seized. Civil justice, at least. Civil. Life moved on. My granddaughter asked, "Why didn't people listen, Grandpa?" I told her, "Sometimes folks want to be right more than they want to be safe." The neighborhood flourished: gardens, Christmas lights, real conversations. Even the young neighbors signed up for engineering courses at the community college. Eleanor testified at regional reform hearings. Small victories, but meaningful ones. Last week I got an email: Regional HOA Reform Committee. We need your expertise. Patrick joked, running for city council next. Maybe not. But there'll always be another Vivian out there, and another engineer willing to stand up for the truth. Heroes don't get to retire, not really. If this story makes you feel something, anger, satisfaction, hope, tell me below. What's the wildest abuse of power you've seen? Let's keep the conversation going, because physics always wins, even when it takes a while to collect the debt.